Hi guys, welcome back to Sight to Astonish, and here we're going to be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. Now, I did see this movie just today, and I went into this movie with the mindset that it was going to be pure comedy, and I was right. But there is this underlying feeling of heart in the film. However, underlying is what I would call it. You see, the small issue with this film is that it feels like it wants to be an 80s rom-com while also being an epic action movie about space Vikings. This feeling has the tendency to pull me out of the film, as there are some scenes that are wildly crazy and epic, with Thor doing amazingly cool stuff like throwing Stormbreaker and murdering thousands of these weird little bird creatures. And then there's scenes where Thor is just sort of sitting there talking to Jane, and it's super awkward, and it's like a 80s boring scene in a rom-com. And while not every Marvel film has to be massive action and silly quips, it is nice to see that in Thor, due to the fact that the character was very boring for quite a few years there. But still, it's a good part of the movie being a comedy and a lot of it being this hybrid rom-com. A major part of my enjoyment with this film, though, did come from Jane Foster, and her arc in this film, unlike in the Avengers game, where she is a cardboard cutout of Thor and just sort of throws Mjolnir and uses the all-weapon as her special. She actually has some character and some very cool stuff to her, mainly being the way she uses Mjolnir and the way she gains Mjolnir. All this stuff I'm not going into due to the fact that there's large spoilers and this film has only been out for a day, though I will do a spoiler review a little bit later on down the line. Jane Foster has a really cool gimmick, although a gimmick is really all I would call it, due to the fact that the only difference between her and Thor in this movie is mainly the fact that she has cancer, and Mjolnir can split apart and sort of hit multiple targets with its Uru fragments, which is a very cool thing, and I wish it was in the Avengers game, and I wish it was in other stuff, because it's fucking epic. However, this is really her only major thing, other than being a little bit cringy and trying to come up with catchphrases. She's really just a lady who can lift Mjolnir and is trying to be Thor. The way this film handles her, and like in deviation to the comics, is actually really interesting. In the comics, which I've not read a ton of, but I have seen a few bits, her basic story is that she has cancer, she's dying from it, she picks up Mjolnir, becomes worthy Thor, or mighty Thor, and has the powers now of Thor, and is not technically healed from the cancer, but she is now able to sort of live. She doesn't just immediately perish, she is now able to live with the powers of Thor. This is different in the film. I will not explain how it is different due to the fact this is spoilers, but it is different in the film. And as the film goes on, we learn more about what's going on with Jane, we learn more about her connection to Thor and the All-Father power, Odinson power, whatever you want to call it. Odin Force, that's what it's called, Odin Force. Now, in this film, there is a lot, and I mean a lot of CGI, but I don't really know how you would be able to get around that. Maybe using those massive LED panels that stuff like Obi-Wan and Mando uses for some of the settings, but that does not seem to be what they've gone for, and I don't think really would have made any difference due to the fact that there is a ton of other CGI in this movie that would still need to be used regardless, such as Thor's lightning, Thor's costumes, Jane's whole Mjolnir, and a ton of other stuff like Valkyrie's horse, and Korg, and Meek, and there's all that stuff that would need to be covered with CGI anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but it's still, there's an overwhelming amount, and you can definitely tell that there's a lot of CGI in this movie, as opposed to some of the more recent Marvel films where it's like, oh, that could be CGI, like with Black Bolt's costume being fully CGI in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, although I would say it's a lot more glaring in this film, because there are some scenes where you're just looking at it and you're like, that is on a green screen. Although I feel like this doesn't fully take you out of the movie. This movie is also insanely colourful in both its personality and its visuals. There is so many saturated colours on screen that I think it is purely incredible to see, and Thor's new suit in this film, I will say, does look pretty dapper in the actual film, and I know in the marketing it looked rather dog shit and pretty bad, but in the actual film itself it looks very nice. The colours are a little bit more muted than they are on the action figures, and the gold is very nice, and it sort of balances out this metallic blue. Very nice, very beautiful, very good. Gore does look cool, and he's got some very cool powers, and the Necrosword is very cool on screen. However, I can't go into gore due to the fact that I have to go into spoilers to talk about gore, and I don't want to do that. However, he is a very cool villain, and I truly don't understand how he does not get the shit absolutely smacked out of him when Thor throws Stormbreaker at him, because he is technically just a dude with a sword. But, you know, and also with gore, he really does not look like an alien. He looks like some guy that just has a sword. And I wish he did look more alien. You know, maybe they could have, like, removed his nose like Voldemort. Maybe they could have, like, elongated his face. But I get it, it's Christian Bale. You don't want to smother his acting with that. You know, they could have just, like, made him taller, or made him, like, short, or, like, really, really thin. But, you know, he's just kind of some dude. And he does look pretty fucking solid in this movie. Like, he looks pretty hench for some reason, which I don't fully understand. Maybe it's the sword. However, as you can probably tell in this review, I sort of leaned away from talking about the story due to the fact that it is a large part of this movie, and a large part of this movie is its comedy and its story, and I don't want to go into that because it is spoilers, but I will be up with another spoiler sort of review of this movie later on, and it will be out at a later date. I do thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next issue of Sight to Astonish.